بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كفى والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد المصطفى وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدقه النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Well, thank you so much for your introduction, Muhammad Ali, and thank you, Khalid Rahman, the Executive President of IPS, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to hear the Honorable President of Azad Kashmir and other scholars on a very critical topic for not just for South Asia, but for the humanity. And I look forward to hearing Khalid Al-Maina and his thoughts on that. My focus will be somewhat limited. I'd like to share with you options for supporting Indian Muslims. I will not go into detail of what they are facing, but just focus on that. My journey to study India began 40 years ago, when on an Eid day, while Muslims were praying Eid in Muradabad, extremist Hindus surrounded from the rooftops with guns and murdered several thousand people praying Eid. That's when I decided to study India, and I went to India to study it. I was just about to exit from an Indian semi-government institution of research when its executive director invited me to talk to him. And he didn't have much to say. One line I remember very clearly. He was saying, he didn't say Muslims, he said your next generation will be nothing but thieves and smugglers. That reflected a whole lot on him. And I just wonder what is the making of this man who, to a complete stranger, without asking who he is, what was he doing, assumed certain things and gave out. I would like to submit to your consideration that Muslims have been turned into the new untouchable of India. That's a fact. And no wonder, because how they are treated. My friend Greg Stanton of the Genocide Watch has repeatedly issued 2 genocide alerts on India. And that was even before this year's things started unfolding themselves. The situation of Indian Muslims is such that it cannot be left to just themselves to deal with it. It is an issue for the humanity, not just for the Muslim world. But Muslims have a responsibility to tell their stories. Indian Muslims have that responsibility. The rest of the Muslims in the world have that responsibility, but specifically Muslim scholars and journalists. There's not a whole lot of scholarship around the world focused on the 200 million Indian Muslims, detaching from the issues of other neighboring countries, issues of Pakistan, detaching itself from the issue of Kashmir, detaching itself from the issue of Bangladesh, just about the Indian Muslims. Their contribution has been tremendous. When Muslim Hajj is about to come, except nobody can go to Hajj at this time, but Muslim will walk months to get to Hajj. When Hijaz Railway Ottoman Khalifa want to build, half of the total money the Ottoman Khalifa contributed, Ottoman king contributed for Hijaz Railway, it was matched by who? It was matched by Indian Muslim, a dinar to dinar. So all the Ummah contributed. Now those Indian Muslims are looking for the world to stand up for them, amplifying their voices, not speaking for them. They are capable of telling their story, but amplifying their story, what is happening with them. World still has not come to realize, and majority of their burden are Muslim scholars and Muslim journalists, but also to communicate with the fellow journalists around the world, and world is listening. Muslim in the West and the Arab Muslims, I would say, has the primary responsibility for this. It is not an election-related temporary issue, as former Assistant Secretary Wells of South Asia told me. No, it is not connected with that. The phenomena began before Modi came into the power. Killing Muslims in Gujarat allowed Modi to build power. Killing Muslim, massacring Muslim, converting Muslims, forcing them to drink cow urine is the process which continued, which was there before Modi. And even if they lose electoral power, that power of RSS and the power of the ideology of Hindutva will continue. So you need to think the long term when you take short-term measures. Killers of Gandhi have defeated Gandhi in India. That is RSS. While they go around building statues of Gandhi around the world to hide behind the image of Gandhi as a nonviolent and leader. In India itself, when I visited last time, I was delivering a speech in Dehradun when a meek person approached me, showing me something. And that was a paper Gandhi started. I said, who are you? He was the chairman of Gandhi Ashram. I said, you should be the one speaking instead of me. He said in his language, I would say that, Saab, Gandhi ko yahan kaun puchta hai? Sir, who cares for Gandhi here? My schedule was filled, but he insisted that I come to Gandhi Ashram. And early in the morning, I only could go there 7 a.m. or so. And when I arrived there, this is the place where Gandhi will stay in Delhi. I saw how, and he had developed his own little temple. He has a school for untouchable children. How horrible condition it was. It was so bad that when I came back to the US, I wrote a personal letter to the President of the United States to at least pay some attention to that. So that is the country which we are talking about here. So India, we should not consider that it is immune to pressure from around the world. But it will require tremendous pressure. And I think primary responsibility, I think, of the Indian Muslims who have hundreds and thousands of people who know the languages of the world, English and Arabic and other languages. They need to be empowered and their writing need to be edited to tell their stories to the world. And we amplify it. But here are the three things which I would like to suggest before I come to the conclusion. And these are based on my study of the prophetic strategies of success. First, connection with God's creation with service, and connection with God Almighty himself in worship. God controls the world. We don't. And connection with God is source of power. And where it is? It is in Surah Al-Ma'un. Have you seen the person who denies the faith? And first set is loss of connection in service to poor and the needy. Indian Muslims are doing that. We can help them. Although Indian government doesn't allow most of Muslim organizations to receive money from outside, but Indian Muslims are capable of doing it. But part which is relevant here, humanizing Hindus. You see, the RSS is like ISIS. That's how we should mention that. And we should differentiate that from Hinduism. We need to humanize Hindus while we talk about the dishumanity which RSS and Hindutva is preaching. So criticizing RSS and Hindutva ideology is extremely needed. Thoroughness is needed. Humanization of Hindus should not be lost while we're doing that. Second thing is communication. Indian Muslim voices must be the primary voices. Bangladeshis and Pakistanis and Arabs and Spanish and Japanese need to be taught, but they need to amplify those voices, not replace the voices of Indian Muslims. They need to be able to tell their stories. I wish there was a Muslim television in India. Unfortunately, there is none, and it's too late for them to even on a television at this moment, even if they have money. But we can provide them a scholarship so many of them can get into the writing, get into the media to be able to tell and teach them world languages. All the world languages with United Nations users, they need to use that. Then I would say the third strategy Prophet ﷺ used, other than connection with humanity in service and connection with God in worship and all the means of communication available, is coalition building. Muslim Indian cannot fight alone. Muslims in the world cannot fight Islamophobia alone. We need to take whole humanity with us. Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, and secular Hindus, wherever they are, and they are all around the world, including in America, including in Arabia. They need to work with each other, and that work needs to be facilitated. Dalits and all these people are good partners in America, although in India, unfortunately, Dalits, which is the new name for untouchables, are used to kill Muslims, the poor among them. So what I consider is there is a historic opportunity. And let me define what is the historic opportunity. It is not like 5 years ago. It's not like 10 years ago. India, in its Hindu nationalism and Hindutva, has given them the intoxication of highest magnitude. As a result, they have lost their mind somewhat. Let me share with you, for the first time in the history of America, there are 2 resolutions in the Congress criticizing India. Never happened before. It happened because of the buildup of the pressure and the bad news. For the first time, major presidential candidates in America have written op-ed to criticize India. Never happened before. When I spoke to 8 presidential candidates as a human rights activist, we talked with them. We talk about Uyghur Muslims and Rohingyas, but when I talked about India, I found interactivity, interest. They're asking more questions on that topic and willing to consider things. Major newspapers in America who will always talk about, they will never talk about Bangladesh. They will always talk about Pakistan in a critical manner, or the Saudi Arabia and all the rest of the Muslim countries. For the first time, consistently for last 2-3 years, India has been subject of very critical report. It has never happened before. And it will become to surprise for you that more than 30 statues of Gandhi has been removed from America. And whenever they try to install a new statue, there is a big opposition, and many times that opposition succeed. So this is a great opportunity. There is a momentum building about education. India can no longer hide behind Gandhi or the Taj Mahal or the yoga or the vegetarianism, because the militant vegetarianism of lynching Muslims on the accusation of killing a cow, and then police officer who is coming to save them being murdered, a Hindu practicing police officer, those stories are coming out. Why India will care for international pressure? Because India aspired to become a superpower, and they have 2 sets of things working for them. In the Western Hemisphere, these are Indians, they call them NRI, non-resident Indians, who have moved to other countries, become citizens there. They have invested money, they acquired power. 70% of hotel business in America is controlled by supporters of Modi by and large. It is connected, but remember, It was Muslims in India developing alliances and coalition that after the massacre of massacre of Muslim in Gujarat, they were able to get America to ban Modi from entering America for 10 years. That was way before all of these things were happening. So that's where Muslims in America, Muslims in UK, France, Germany, they're small in number, but if they organize better, work with each other, they will achieve building results for Indian Muslims. So they are important. At this moment, there was more influence of Arab countries and some good people there, like Khalid al-Maina and as well as Prince al-Qasimi, just writing here and there. That resulted in statements from Modi and other people who are completely ignoring what was going on here, because they are closer and their system is different than American system. So it has a higher level of impact. So if I see in last 6 to 8 months, who has been able to influence Indian behavior more, I would say Middle Eastern countries, few voices speaking up solidly. So in conclusion, I would say that we need to develop educational material, their voices, but exhibits, documentaries, films, by and for Indian Muslims, develop memos. Power of memo is extremely important. Not lengthy lecture, 2-3 pages, a specific point, a memo on this, a memo on that, thoroughly documented based on the Western sources or Indian sources, not sources around other country, and that will have a tremendous impact. And those need to be translated in the languages which are official in the United Nations, which is Arabic also is one of those languages. But I like us to move away in conclusion from some of the things which I see preeminent in the Muslim world, that India is going to break apart. I have invested 40 years of my life studying India. I like to tell you, as a human being, as an imam, as a Muslim, don't wish for the tragedies. India falling apart is going to be a major tragedy for a billion people. Don't wish that for the enemy, which you don't wish for yourself. India is not weak. RSS and Indian film industry has built a nationalism which has no parallel in the world at this moment. And that's is danger, not a good thing. But good thing that it is not about to break apart. So it's not a passing phenomena. RSS acquired power way before they came into political power. They changed the textbook. I have met the guy who led the change of the textbooks in which Muslims are enemies and all of those things. I have delivered keynote speeches in India. I know these people pretty well. I can tell you this. They acquired power gradually. It's not going to disappear with any political change. So you need to think of long-term strategy along with short-term strategy, and don't allow wishful thinking to waste resources which are needed to protect the 2 million people. It was New York Times who on October 15, 2014, wrote an editorial, Dangerous Alliance Against Muslim. And they talk about how Buddhist extremists in Burma, Buddhist extremists in Sri Lanka, and Hindu extremists in India are collaborating and cooperating with each other to suppress Muslim. Those powers, which they talk about 6 years ago, are now in control of the governments as well as in control of the street powers. Thank you so much.